Welcome back. In this video and the next one, I want to introduce you to the MongoDB aggregation pipeline, which is an extremely powerful and extremely useful MongoDB framework for data aggregation. And the idea is that we basically define a pipeline that all the documents from a certain collection go through, where they are processed step by step in order to transform them into aggregated results. For example, we can use the aggregation pipeline in order to calculate averages or calculating minimum and maximum values. We can calculate distances even, and we can really do all kinds of stuff. It's really amazing how powerful this aggregation pipeline is. All right, but enough talk. Let's now actually start using the aggregation pipeline, and I'm going to create a new handler function here. Okay, because later on we will then define a new route and then use that function for that. But that new route, I'm going to create it later. Okay, so I want to create a function here that's going to calculate a couple of statistics about our tours. All right, so I'm going to call this one get tour stats. Okay, so stats for statistics, and it's going to be an async function. And so VS Code now automatically pre-filled all of this. All right, let's create or try catch block here. And actually I'm going to copy this from right up here. And now in here, I will create a variable called stats. All right. Now, the aggregation pipeline really is a MongoDB feature, but Mongoose, of course, gives us access to it so that we can use it in the Mongoose driver, right? So using our tour model in order to access the tour collection, we say tour.aggregate. All right. And so the aggregation pipeline is a bit like a regular query. And so using the aggregation pipeline is just a bit like doing a regular query. All right. The difference here is that in aggregations, as I already mentioned, we can manipulate the data in a couple of different steps. And so let's now actually define these steps. And for that, we pass in an array of so-called stages. All right. So we pass in an array, and in here, we will then have a lot of stages. And again, the documents then pass through these stages one by one, step by step, in the defined sequence as we define it here. Okay? So each of the elements in this array will be one of the stages. And there are a ton of different stages that we can choose from, but I will just show you the most common ones in this lecture and also in the next one. But anyway, I now want to take a minute and take a quick look at the MongoDB documentation, because I think we didn't do that yet. All right. So MongoDB, and we already know this website. So on our MongoDB website, we go here to learn, then documentation, and then in here we select the MongoDB manual. And this documentation is huge. It has a lot of stuff in here. And if you were going to go through it all, well, then you'd become really a MongoDB master. All right. So it gives you a nice introduction to MongoDB. You have the installation here. You have the CRUD operations. So a nice overview about a lot of the stuff that we already learned before. Right. Then you have stuff about the aggregation. And in particular, the aggregation pipeline, which we're going to talk about now. But what I want to really show you here is actually this reference that we have at the bottom. Because in the reference, we have here, for example, the operators. And that's where we have a lot of important stuff that we've been using all the time. So let's take a look here at the query operators, for example. And here you see, we actually have these operators that we already used. So for example, greater than or equal, or less than and equal. But if someday in your own applications you need some other operator, well, now you know where you can find them. Now, of course, it's also always very helpful to just do a quick Google search, probably find some Stack Overflow post about it. But believe me, many times it's easier and faster to just quickly jump into the documentation and quickly search for whatever you're needing. Okay? You just need to know how the documentation works, and once you know that, it's then going to be quite easy for you to find what you're looking for. All right. Here you also have some logical operators. For example, the OR operator we already used again. And yeah, really a lot of stuff. Geospatial operators. And we're going to use some actually later. And yeah, really a lot of stuff. Then what I wanted to show you for this lecture actually are the aggregation pipeline stages. Okay, so here you have a lot of them. And what we're going to use in this lecture here is match, for example, and group. Where is that? Yeah, group, that is a very important one. And so as I mentioned, I'm going to show you the most important ones in this lecture and the next one. But again, if you in some case need something else, then just go ahead, come here to this documentation and you will find what you're looking for. All right. Anyway, let's now learn how we can actually define one of these stages. All right. And I'm going to start with match. And match is basically to select or to filter certain documents. And so it's very simple. It's really just like a filter object in MongoDB, such like we've been using so many times. So each of the stages is an object, and then here comes the name of the stage. So this one is the match stage. All right. And as I mentioned, it's really just a query. Okay. And so let's say that for starters, we only want to select documents which have a ratings average greater or equal than 4.5. So can you do that? I'm just going to give you a second to do that here. All right. So I hope you did it. So ratings average should be greater or equal than 4.5. Okay. And so that's it. That's the first stage. And usually this match stage is just a preliminary stage to then prepare for the next stages which come ahead. So the next one is now the group stage. So group, and then in there we need to always pass just another object. So it looks kind of weird with all these objects, but yeah, you've seen that before, and MongoDB just works this way. It's always objects inside of objects inside of objects. All right? And this group here is where the real magic happens. Because as the name says, it allows us to group documents together basically using accumulators. And an accumulator is, for example, even calculating an average. So if we have 5 tours, each of them has a rating, we can then calculate the average rating using group. Okay? And so let's do exactly that right here. Now the first thing that we need to always specify is the ID, because this is where we're going to specify what we want to group by. All right? Now, for now, we say null here because we want to have everything in one group so that we can calculate the statistics for all of the tours together and not separated by groups. Okay? We will a bit later then also group by different stuff. For example, we can group by the difficulty. And we can then, for example, calculate the average for the easy tours, the average for the medium tours, and the average for the difficult tours. Okay? So again, we can group by one of our fields, and that field we are gonna specify in here. But for now, as I said, we want to calculate these averages for all the tours together in one big group. All right? And so in that case, we say underscore ID and set it to null. Okay. And now let's actually calculate the average rating. In order to do that, we simply specify a new field. So let's simply call it the average rating. All right, so like this. And this will be, well, the average, which is yet another MongoDB operator. So this one here, and you will find it in the reference if you look it up. Okay, so this is a mathematical operator calculating the average and now the name of the field. And again, I know that this is going to look very weird, but in order to specify the field which we want to calculate the average from, we need to use the $, but in quotes here, and then the name of the field. So ratings average in this case. Okay. And let's also calculate the average price. So average price, and again, did it wrong here. And so the average, and then again the name of the field, and in quotes, and with this $. right? So it looks kind of weird again, but this is just the way that the aggregation pipeline works. So we have the average price. Let's actually also calculate the minimum price, so the smallest price, and the largest price. So min price. And from now on, it's gonna all look kind of similar. So now we use the min operator, and then again the field name like this. All right, and a comma here, and let's now just duplicate this one in order to calculate the maximum price. Okay, and now let's actually take a look at what we already got at this point. Okay, so we now need to actually send out this response. And so again, I'm just gonna go ahead and grab some of these already done responses here. Okay, so the data that we want to send out is called stats. Stats. Okay. And now all we need to do is to actually add a new route here in our tour routes. And again, I'm going to add that here right at the top. So router.route / get tour, or actually just tour stats, just like this. Okay, because the get is already defined in the HTTP method. So no need to repeat it in the name. So tour controller dot get tour stats. Give it a save, and let's actually test it out now. So I'm really excited to test it out now, actually, to see if it works, because again, it's really an amazing and really powerful tool which allows you to do so much stuff. So tour stats, send it, and that's not really the result that we were waiting for. So that's just the pipeline that we defined, but I already know why that is. So we did not await the result. So this basically, just like a normal query, is going to return an aggregate object. Okay, so .find is going to return a query, and .aggregate is going to return an aggregate object. And then only when we await it, it actually comes back with the result. So that's also why we defined this function here as an async function, so that we can then use await in there. And so this is the right place. Let's try it again. And here we go. So great. We have the average rating of all our tours. We have the average price, which you see is 1,563, and then the minimum and the maximum, right? And from our data, we can actually confirm that this is true. So great, really, really great. Now, one more thing that I want to do here is to actually calculate the total number of ratings that we have and also the total number of tours. So we have the average rating here, and let's actually do it before. So num of ratings, just like this. And you can probably guess that this one is called sum, and then the ratings average. Or actually not ratings average, but ratings quantity, right? So that's where the number of ratings is stored. And so the number of ratings, the total, will be the sum of all of these together. And now the last one is the number of tours. And that one is a bit trickier. And so that's a nice one to show you here. So we still want to sum, so to add everything together basically. So we still use sum, but what are we going to add together? Well, we basically add 1 for each document. And so we say 1, and that's it. So basically, for each of the document that's going to go through this pipeline, 1 will be added to this num counter. Let's call it num tours. Okay. And so, yeah, let's test it out now again. And indeed, we get our 9 tours, and we already know that we have 9. Okay, so these are all the statistics for all the tours together. But let's now take it to the next level. As I said before, we can now group our results for different fields. And let's actually start out with the difficulty. And so that's quite similar. to specifying the fields down there, which is simply the $sign and then the name of the field. So difficulty, give it a save, and that's it. Send it here, and now we have the statistics all defined for each of these 3 difficulties. So that's really, really amazing. So this is the part that blows my mind. It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, you can start to see all the kinds of stuff, all the kinds of data manipulation that you can do using this pipeline, right? So we really can now start to analyze stuff. For example, we see that the easiest tours are the ones who get the poorest ratings with a 4.6, while the medium tours are the ones who get the highest ratings. We can also see that the difficult tours are the most expensive ones with an average price of $19.97, while the easiest ones are also the cheapest ones with a price of $1,272, right? We also see that the easiest tours are the ones which we have the most, so 4 easy ones and only 2 difficult ones, right? So we can use this, of course, to get all kinds of insights into our data. Okay, let's comment this one out here, and let's just try another one. For example, by ratings. Why not? Let's just try it out, see what we get. So for example, we have 2 tours, so basically with a rating of 4.5. We have 2 tours with 4.7, 1 tour with 4.8, and 3 tours with 4.9. Oh, and also down here, 1 tour with 4.6. And so, for example, one insight that we can get here is that the very expensive tours with this average price of $19.97 get extremely good ratings. So, all kinds of stuff really that we can do here. Let's get rid of this one. Let's add this one back. And we can now actually even do some operations with this one. So just for fun, let's put this difficulty to uppercase. So there is of course going to be another object here. And then here in front is the operator. And so the operator in this case is called toUpper. So just yet another MongoDB operator. So check it out. And now it's spelled uppercase. Great. So we have the group stage here, which is quite complete. So let's try another one, which is the sort stage. So another object in our array for yet another stage. And this one is called sort. So sort, and then in there we need yet another object. And it kind of auto-completed this one, I don't know why. And so here we can now specify which field we want to sort this by. And let's actually use the average price. Okay, and now here in the sorting, we actually need to use the field names that we specified up here in the group, right? We can no longer use the old names because at this point they are already gone. They no longer exist. So at this point in the aggregation pipeline, we really already have these results. So these are now our documents basically. And so if we want to sort by the average price, then this is the field name that we gotta use. So we can say the average price, and then we can say 1 for ascending. So let's try that out. And yeah, indeed. So that's the lowest one, and that's the highest one. Great. So we did a lot of stuff. Let me just show you that we can also repeat stages. So let's actually do another match here. And this one is really just to show you that we actually can repeat stages. And I also want to show you another operator. So let's now select by ID. And remember that ID is now the difficulty, right? So we just specify that up here. Okay, so we want the ID. And now a new operator that we didn't use yet. We want it to be not equal to, and let's say easy. Okay. And so just like this, we're going to select all the documents that are not easy. So in this case, the one that says medium and difficult, right? So basically excluding the one that says easy, right? So again, it's not really useful here because that will take away a lot of our meaningful data. But just to show you that we can, of course, match multiple times. So in this case, we matched once before we actually did the group. And then we matched once we were ready doing the grouping. All right. Now let's actually keep this here out of our aggregation pipeline, but I'm gonna leave it here just so that you keep it as a reference. All right. Give it another save, give it another try. And so these are our results for getting our tour statistics. So really nice, really great. I hope you enjoyed this video, and in the next one we're actually going to keep using the aggregation pipeline to do some more calculations and to show you some more different stages. So keep tuned for that one.